Guess what? When it comes right down to it, wherever you go, there you are. Whatever you wind up doing, that's what you wound up doing. Whatever you're thinking right now, that's what's on your mind. Whatever has happened to you, it has already happened. The important question is, how are you going to handle it? In other words, now what? Now what? That's the question John Kabat-Zinn uses to begin his book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. It's simple, but it points us straight to the vitality of this moment. No matter where life has taken you up until now, the only question that really matters is this one. Now what? Because the way you answer it will shape where you're headed next. So to begin this episode, I too have an important question for you, the listener. Are you here now? All right, welcome back to the I Am Here Now podcast. In this episode, we're exploring the work of John Kabat-Zinn, the man often credited with bringing mindfulness into the modern world. A professor of medicine and the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, Kabat-Zinn has spent decades showing how the simple practice of presence can change the way we live, heal, and connect. One of his most beloved books, Wherever You Go, There You Are, captures this in such a human way. It's not about chasing enlightenment or escaping stress. It's about learning to meet each moment with awareness, to sit in the present without needing it to be different, to remember that life is always happening now. This book is one I recommend to anyone who has any interest in mindfulness or meditation. And I think it's one that if you have an interest in mindfulness and meditation, it's kind of a must read. And if you kind of look at my copy, you can tell how much I enjoy this book. I mean, it's just a bunch of scribbling notes, post-it notes, highlighting marks, scribbles. And, when it comes to this podcast, in some ways, this is a great thing. There's a lot for us to talk about. But it also made it truly tough to really dial in what it was that I wanted to focus on with this episode and with this podcast as a whole when it comes to this book. So it was really tough to decide, but I realized that in order to truly do the book justice, I needed to slow down and focus on just one section at a time. And that's why I chose to break down part one, just part one of the book, which is titled The Bloom of the Present Moment. And I'll be doing this across a mini series of episodes. And honestly, I have a strong feeling this won't be the last time that I come back to the book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. It's really that rich. So across these 3 episodes, I'm going to be sharing the themes that really spoke to me most directly. And in this first episode, we're stepping into our first theme, which is conveniently also the title of part 1 as a whole, which is, again, what it means to bloom in the present. And in order to talk about what it means to bloom in the present, we need to first begin with its foundations. And I think John Kabat-Zinn begins the book exactly how we should begin talking about the present moment, with a chapter titled, What is Mindfulness? Mindfulness is an ancient Buddhist practice which has profound relevance for our present day lives. This relevance has nothing to do with Buddhism per se, or with becoming a Buddhist, but it has everything to do with waking up and living in harmony with oneself and with the world. Cultivating some appreciation for the fullness of the moments we are alive. From the Buddhist perspective, our ordinary waking state of consciousness is seen as being severely limited and limiting, resembling in many respects an extended dream rather than wakefulness. Meditation helps us wake up from this sleep of automaticity and unconsciousness. So here, I think John Kabat-Zinn is really pointing out a very important detail about mindfulness, and that is that it isn't just a Buddhist philosophy or teaching, but it really is a way about waking up to this present moment, to the world around us and the harmony within ourself and the world. And then second, I think the next point about our ordinary state of consciousness really is limiting. And it's more of a dream state rather than a state of wakefulness. And I think this is a key point here because I think this is going to kind of set the tone for why mindfulness is so important. It's really kind of combating this automaticity that he talks about and the unconsciousness actions that we are committing to on a day-to-day basis. And so this is kind of the way we can combat this conditioning and really take a hold of this gift of life that we get to live. And so John Kabat-Zinn continues in this chapter by saying, mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Mindfulness provides a simple but powerful route for getting ourselves unstuck, back into touch with our own wisdom and vitality, a way to take charge of the direction and quality of our own lives, including our relationship within the family, our relationship to work and to the larger world and planet, and most fundamentally, our relationship with ourself as a person. So, mindfulness is about tapping into our internal wisdom and vitality through simply being. And really is the way we can break free from these unconscious routines that are kind of limiting our lives. And I think this is really a pillar to what this podcast is all about. It's really about not taking this life for granted, not taking this gift of life for granted. And I think that's what John Kabat-Zinn is pointing to here in this first chapter. The importance of mindfulness is it's the way we can combat against the normal routines that we commit ourselves to that are limiting the way we get to experience this life. And so he continues, mindfulness is an appreciation for the present moment and the cultivation of an intimate relationship with it through a continual attending to it with care and discernment. It is the direct opposite of taking life for granted. So once again, this is that pillar that we're talking about. It's about not taking this life for granted and just really being where you are. And he finishes this chapter by saying, when we commit ourselves to paying attention in an open way, without falling prey to our own likes, dislikes, opinions, prejudices, projections, and expectations, new possibilities open up and we have a chance to free ourselves from the straitjacket of unconsciousness. I like to think of mindfulness simply as the art of conscious living. Most important point is to be yourself and not try to become anything that you're already not already. About being in touch with your own deepest nature and letting it flow out of you unimpeded. It has to do with waking up and seeing things as they are. And, this points to the importance of just letting go of the prejudices and the importance of just kind of really being exactly where you are. And I think the one thing I really enjoyed about this part was this line. Most important point is to be yourself and not try to become anything that you are not already. About being in touch with your own deepest nature and letting it flow out of you unimpeded. I love that part. It's just about allowing your full self to flow out of you unimpeded. It's not about becoming anything that you aren't already, but really just being more in touch with who you are in your nature. Because I think this is something that could be forgotten about through the unconscious routines that we commit ourselves to. And so, what does it mean to bloom in the present? Well, I think John Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness paints a great outline for us to begin with. And that's that it's the art of conscious living. And although this is a simple concept to talk about, it's not very easy to actually practice, which is why the next chapter is titled Simple But Not Easy. And the chapter starts, while it may be simple to practice mindfulness, it is not necessarily easy. Mindfulness requires effort and discipline for the simple reason that the forces that work against our being mindful, namely our habitual unawareness and automaticity, are exceedingly tenacious. Our actions are all too frequently driven rather than undertaken in awareness, driven by those perfectly ordinary thoughts and impulses that run through the mind like a coursing river, if not a waterfall. We get caught up in the torrent, and it winds up submerging our lives as it carries us to places we may not wish to go and may not even realize we are headed for. Right here, John Kabat-Zinn is pointing to that it's almost easier to not practice mindfulness. It's easier to not be present. It's easier to get caught up in our habitual unawareness and the patterns that have begun to dictate our lives without us even knowing it. John paints this image of what happens when we continue to get caught up in this torrent. It feels like a waterfall that is just constantly downpouring on us. So, how do we escape this reality? Well, John says as he continues in this chapter, meditation means learning how to get out of this current, sit by its bank, and listen to it, learn from it, and then use its energies to guide us rather than tyrannize us. This process doesn't magically happen by itself, it takes energy. So, once again, it is simple. Meditation is a simple practice, but it is not easy. It takes a great deal of energy. The thing is, by meditating, being present with what is, listening to it, learning from it, and then using this energy to guide us rather than tyrannize us, this is our key to unlocking our ability to actually be where we are. But once again, it takes energy. It's harder to commit to this action than it is not to. It's easier to just choose to not be present, to not be where you are, to not be mindful. What might be another pillar of this podcast is that the path with more challenge might be the path that is truly our calling. I think a lot of times the hard things to commit to in life are often the ones that are the most rewarding and is really the path that we're meant to be on. So, in order to bloom in the present, we must be able to practice meditation and get beyond these challenges and go against the habitual unawareness that we have learned throughout our lives. Now, although mindfulness is challenging, one thing that we must also emphasize is that it is also meant to be simple. And maybe it's the simplicity which also adds to why it is so challenging. And the chapter, This Is It, illustrates this beautifully. John Kabat-Zinn starts, ordinarily, when we undertake something, it is only natural to expect a desirable outcome for our efforts. We want to see results, even if it is only a pleasant feeling. The sole expectation I can think of is meditation. Meditation is about not trying to improve yourself or get anywhere else, but simply to realize where you already are. Perhaps its value lies precisely in this. Maybe we all need to do one thing in our lives simply for its own sake. I think many people, including myself, originally think that meditation is about being a better version of ourselves, tapping into pleasant feelings of stillness and presence. And in the process, this will lead us to being better versions of ourselves, being able to react to the world in a stronger and more powerful way. But as John Kabat-Zinn is pointing to here, that this is not the truth. It's really about realizing where you are. This is it. That is all it is. Where are you now? And how there's power in doing something in our lives just for its own sake, to just allow ourselves to really be and do it for no other result other than allowing ourselves to be. So he continues from this, but it would not quite be accurate to call meditation a doing. It is more accurately described as a being. When we understand that, this is it. It allows us to let go of the past and the future and wake up to where we are now, in this moment. People usually don't get this right away. They want to meditate in order to relax, to experience a special state, to become a better person, to reduce some stress or pain, to break out of old habits and patterns, to break free or become enlightened. All valid reasons to take up meditation practice, but all equally fraught with problems if you expect those things to happen just because now you are meditating. You'll get caught up in wanting to have a special experience or in looking for signs of progress. And so, although it's natural for us to want these results, have expectations of these results, what we need to remind ourselves is that meditation and mindfulness is not about the result, but it's really just about giving yourself the time and the space to be. And so he continues on. Of course, you have to see progress sooner or later to keep at something, but meditation is different. From the perspective of meditation, every state is a special state. Every moment is a special moment. When we let go of wanting something else to happen in this moment, we are taking a profound step toward being able to encounter what is here now. If we hope to go anywhere or develop ourselves in any way, we can only step from where we are standing. And he finishes by saying, So, in meditation practice, the best way to get somewhere is to let go of trying to get anywhere at all. And John here is making a point that is very important. If we hope to develop ourselves or get anywhere in life, we can only step from where we are standing right now. So, if we don't know where we are, how can we move forward? And so, there's kind of this paradox, if you can kind of see it, that through not chasing results and progress, through letting go of trying to get anywhere at all, it is then when we are able to move forward from where we are and actually get somewhere. And so, to bloom in the present, we need to meet this paradox with trust and courage. And for those of you who are American, like myself, this kind of goes against what our culture has taught us. I think in our capitalist society and just our society in general, the American dream, we're taught to set goals, to have outcomes we are striving for, whether it be an amount of money, success, fame. But as John demonstrates, in order to get somewhere that aligns with our purest self, we need to let go of our expectations or attachment to results and outcomes. And we also need to let go of our judgments. And, in this last chapter that I want to talk about today, it talks about exactly this. And the chapter is literally titled Non Judging. It doesn't take long in meditation to discover that part of our mind is constantly evaluating our experiences, comparing them with our other experiences, or holding them up against expectations and standards that we create, often out of fear. Fear that I'm not good enough, that bad things will happen, that good things won't last, that people might hurt me, that I won't get my way, that only I know anything, that I'm the only one who doesn't know anything. When you dwell in stillness, the judging mind can come through like a foghorn. I don't like the pain in my knee. This is boring. I like this feeling of stillness. I had a good meditation yesterday, but today I'm having a bad meditation. It's not working for me. I'm no good at this. I'm no good, period. This type of thinking dominates the mind and weighs it down. It's like carrying around a suitcase full of rocks on your head. It feels good to put it down. Imagine how it might feel to suspend all your judging and instead to let each moment just be as it is, without attempting to evaluate it as good or bad. This would be a true stillness, a true liberation. And I want to just take a pause here. I want us to take up this time. Take a breath right now. Just think about a place in your life where you're placing judgment on yourself or on others. Now think about how these judgments are weighing you down. And I don't know about you, but when I did this reflection, I realized how heavy these judgments weigh on me and take me out of the present moment, take me away from being where I am. And in the process, I felt like I lost a lot of precious moments with family, friends, loved ones, and self, that I wasn't there because I was judging the moment rather than just being there. In a way, it kind of weighed on my heart heavy. I was disappointed with how much I was allowing the judgments to weigh on my heart. And then I realized that in turn, that too is a judgment. It's not good or bad that we naturally judge our situation. It just is. And when I was able to do this, it was then that I was able to kind of just see it for what it is, acknowledge that it is part of this experience of being human, but also make the choice that, I wasn't going to cling to those judgments anymore. I wasn't going to cling to my own expectations, the way I wanted things to be, but rather just allowed them to be as they were and as they are. So, John Kabat-Zinn continues from this and he says, meditation means cultivating a non-judging attitude towards what comes up in the mind, come what may. That doesn't mean judging won't be going on. Of course it will. because it is in the very nature of the mind to compare and judge and evaluate. The tack we take in meditation is simply to witness whatever comes up in the mind or the body and to recognize it without condemning it or pursuing it. Knowing that our judgments are unavoidable and necessarily limiting thoughts about experience. What we are interested in meditation is direct contact with the experiencing itself. And this is the key. This is where the liberation comes in. It's not simply trying to shut out the judgments from coming in, but it is through simply witnessing what comes up in the mind and body and to listen to it without condemning it or pursuing it, knowing that judgments are unavoidable and part of our experience. So once again, letting go of the expectations and the results that we are clinging onto and allowing what is to be is what can liberate us from this nature of the mind that takes us out of this moment, that takes us out from where we are now. Through judging, through wanting things to be different than what they are, or reflecting on what was and wishing what is to be more like that, or hoping it is different in the future. Rather than judging this moment, you're able to meet it fully and experience it fully and allow that to then redirect where you move forward. So, blooming in the present means to be where you are fully, to not shut out anything, including the judgments or the needs for results, but simply to see them come up inside of you and acknowledge their existence, and then letting yourself step into that next moment. And it's through this grace and being where we are able to bloom into our purest selves in this present moment. So I hope if there's anything that you guys take away from this episode, it's one, the importance and the vitality of mindfulness and being where you are. I think in our last book review, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this amazingly in The Miracle of Mindfulness. But I think Jon Kabat-Zinn also paints the image perfectly clear that we have these strong forces working against us, our unconsciousness, our habitual routines, our automaticity. These things are working against us and taking us out of the present moment, pushing us away from our purest selves. So, in order to really bloom in the present moment, we need to first acknowledge this vitality and how important it is to be in this moment. And then next, I hope another thing that you guys take away from this episode is the liberation that could be found from letting go of judgments, letting go of expectations, and just allowing yourself to be where you are, trusting yourself to be where you are, and having the courage to be where you are. So I hope you all learned some practices or insights into how you too could bloom into your own present reality. I know I'm taking away some lessons into my own life from this theme. And in the next episode, we're going to dive into the next theme of learning how to move with the waves. It's going to be a great one. I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys. That is it for me. So I hope you guys all find grounding, find stillness, find presence in the here and now. And per usual, aloha.